guys, welcome back. We have a new moon in Capricorn that we need to talk about today, and there is a discussion that we need to have about this. Now, on surface, like face value, the new moon in Cap this year is not looking super active. There's actually not really any major transits that the new moon itself is making to other planets. However, when we dig just a little bit deeper into the chart, we come to find that actually this particular lunar cycle that we're moving through right now, as we also move through this last couple of days of 2024, is really holding both the ending and beginning to some pretty significant long-term cycles. I think that this is kind of hitting on a more like long-term level as opposed to the short-term nature of traditional lunar cycles and new moons. Usually when we're looking at new moon energy, we're specifically talking about the 4-week lunar cycle from new moon in one sign when the moon and sun come together to the new moon in the next sign when the moon and the sun come together. That's typically what the energy of any new moon is referencing, is representing, is encapsulating. But this new moon in Capricorn is throwing it way back for a lot of reasons in a couple of different ways. We have like big sort of like pinnacle meaningful transits happening with the ruler of the sign of Capricorn. And even though the new moon is really, like I said, not making any big specific aspects, there are some big specific aspects going on the side of this new moon that I actually feel are giving us a very clear indication of what this period of time is about, what we are doing, and essentially also where we are going as we prepare to head into our Aquarius new moon coming up next month, which I do believe is going to be like a whole new day. I think that by the time we get to that Aquarius cycle, things are going to have shifted somehow in maybe ways that we can't even perceive right now, even just like a month prior to, that point in time. But I think that we've got some big conclusions that this Capricorn cycle is representing. I know for like several months now, I've been going on and on and on about being at the tipping point, the transition, endings and beginnings, being at a crossroads, emphasis of sort of like the past and the future in some type of balance. And again, this Capricorn cycle, as we are both, it's funny also because the Capricorn cycle is also encapsulating the transition in our calendar year. So it's got the last couple of days of 2024 and the first couple of days of 2025. And that is also what is going on again in like some greater ways that I'm going to explain and talk about as we move through this report. But the past and the future, where we've been, where we're going, the confrontation between the two, you guys, and like most specifically, still what we need to let go of, release, get over, move on from, like turn the page on, close the door on, just put in the past, cut ties from from the past that maybe had defined the previous era of our existence in order to move forward in some new direction associated with expansion, associated with growth, or literally just like this next phase of our lives that is unfolding right now. Okay, so as this new moon in Capricorn comes in, it's a new moon in Capricorn ruled by the planet Saturn. Saturn is also the lord of time. Saturn is also the lord of karma. So it also has a tendency of like sobering things up a little bit. It asks for maturity. It asks for like duty and responsibility. So there could be sort of a more serious, kind of like heavy, borderline oppressive vibe perhaps as we are moving through this particular Capricorn cycle. And also as I get into this report, I will explain that a lot of that's going to most likely be related to the ways that we maybe have been trying to grow and expand and how we've maybe been trying to change our lives since perhaps 2020 or maybe just throughout the course of this past couple of months. We've got several, and I'm going to try to keep it all organized and linear and straight for you guys as I move through this report to the best of my ability, but we've got like several different prior periods of time that could be of relevance or like just some type of special note as we move through our Capricorn cycle as well. So I think that themes relating to things that happened a while ago and us being where we are now because of them, and also how the choices and decisions and like what we're involved with, what's unfolding now, is relating to a future that has yet to come to pass. All of this type of stuff is probably going to in some way hold some type of just like relevance in terms of the circumstances that are playing out right now, where our focus is, what we've done in the past that has brought us to where we're at now, and also what we're doing now and how that is altering course in terms of what's going to be happening as we move into the future. Okay, so this is the moment that we're in. It could be a more serious vibe generally as we move through this next couple of weeks. Things could feel heavy and we could be feeling the weight of our choices and decisions, either past or present, as a result of like what I was saying a minute ago, the impact of the past on the present and the impact of the present on the future. This could just be more apparent to us in a way that is more pressing somehow as we move through this cycle. There is also perhaps something from the past that is still in our lives for some reason, or that we're still struggling with, or that is still a challenge to us on some level that needs to be conquered, overcome, transformed in some type of way before things can start moving forward in this new direction or begin to expand or grow in alignment with maybe our vision or what we've been working towards throughout the course of this past couple of years. It does feel like the way that all is set up, and I will explain why. I'm just gonna kind of summarize to you guys the way that I'm perceiving this information, and then as we get towards the end of the report, I will break down the aspects and tell you where I'm pulling all of this from. But it feels like this lunar cycle is representing kind of some type of impasse to growth without purge, transformation, and renewal on some level in some area of our lives somehow, just the way that all this is laying itself out. It's like a confrontation between the past and the future, facing our demons to some degree this cycle in order to be released, to become something new, to grow, to expand, to build, to go in this new direction, to go through this like radical change, you guys. That is just probably going to be something that I'm saying a lot more over this next upcoming couple of months or so, especially as we move through Aquarius season this year. Uranus, Aquarius, like this energy is about radical change. It's not even just about change. Like that radical is there for a reason. You know, it's all about novelty. It's about things happening suddenly and in unexpected ways. Dynamic and radical change, and also new beginnings, powerful new beginnings aligned with dynamic and radical change. It's like all over the blueprint for this coming up 2025 year. And this new moon in Capricorn cycle that we're moving through right now, of course, obviously, is the bridge into that energy. And so it, I feel like, is kind of representing this like barrier to entry until we've done something, we've like crossed some vital threshold within our own personal I don't know, like life evolution on some level, the lessons that we've been learning, until we have come to some point, and it's like in an oven within ourselves with both the Jupiter and the Mars and the Uranian retrograde energy together right now. Like we've just got to overcome something or change something or shift something within us somehow that has been acting as like some type of final hang up, or again is that last remaining like blockage or just impasse to things opening up for us and really kind of like shooting us forward in this radical new direction. Okay, so basically here, our positive movement, our positive growth, our momentum in this new direction is going to come through challenge, release, and redirection. There could also be these sudden changes or upsets that are happening materially, financially, or relationally that are somehow feeding into this whole idea and process that's unfolding over this cycle as well. I do, though, want to offer, you know, I want you guys to keep in mind as I'm talking about all this energy, and even as we are moving through the days and weeks associated with his cycle. It is the end of something that we have been going through or struggling with for a long period of time. Whether it was just the past year and a half, or whether it has literally been the past 18 years, or whether it's been the past 5 years. As I said, there are a bunch of like overlapping like kind of critical cycles that are happening over the course of this Capricorn cycle, this 4-week cycle heading into the Aquarius cycle, which again is this like, at this point in time, especially because of Pluto's presence there, about these like, it's like radical rebirth and radical change. Okay, so we're talking about periods of time that may have gone back to July of 2023, June of 2006, also December of 2020, also this past August of 2024, and there's also a date in June of 2025 that is related to everything that we have kind of going on and playing out right now during this Capricorn cycle as well. And as I said, by the time that we get through this cycle and get to the Aquarius cycle, it's really going to be a much different vibe. And we will have graduated from some lesson plan or some journey that we've been on throughout the course of the past year and a half. The nodes of the moon will have changed signs by the time that we get to that Aquarius new moon energy, and that is just radically going, that word radical again, that it's really going to shift the way that the nature of a lot of the experiences that we're going through, because destiny and karma will be in different energetic signs and impacting different houses, and it's just going to change. It's going to be another thing that is going to represent kind of like a turning point for us in some way, for all of us somehow. So things are definitely shifting, okay? A lot of the difficult stuff that we've been going through over these varying periods of time is coming to an end right now. So if you've been going through it, or if you just feel like these varying periods of time, which I'm going to be discussing in the report today and are associated with these cycles, have been extra difficult for you, extra challenging for you, it's like the light at the end of the tunnel as we move through this next month, and things are definitely going to feel different, I think, as we hit that Aquarius cycle next month. Okay, but this one to me, again, it's just giving the energy of sort of the death of our old lives, the death of the old world, the end of an era in our lives, and also the inner knowing that something very new and very different is about to happen, but perhaps not being able to have like a tangible sense of what that is, how it's gonna be, what it's gonna look like, how on earth we're even going to make it happen. And I want to say, as we move through this energy and prepare to hit that point, I really do feel like, even though this is kind of very, I guess you could say, counterintuitive to the way that things have been done, and a lot of us have been like conditioned to sort of interface with life, I do think that to the best of our ability to go with the flow of things without perhaps knowing how the cards are going to fall or where we're going to land, but really doing our best to trust the process and to believe somewhere in our heart of hearts, or deep within our soul, that we're being looked after, that things are happening as they should, that events and circumstances are taking place to align us with what is truly like the best for us and what we really need to get to where we're meant to be to at this point in time. This whole higher notion of the divine plan, the hand of God, our relationship personally with the universe at work in our lives, and the universe's pursuit to put us to use for the true like meaning and purpose that we came to this planet at this point in time to experience. You know what I mean? Like, trying to get in alignment with that sentiment, that mind shift, that perspective, that maybe just like feeling within us. I think that we are going to probably experience the least turbulence if we're able to look at things that way as we move forward towards this period of time. So, lots of transitionings happening right now. past points of time again being very relevant this cycle. And like I said, as we get through this report, we're going to talk about all the reasons why. And I do think it's also indicating a setup for a 2025 that is going to just be a much different year than we are traditionally used to experiencing somehow. How that is, again, like, I don't know, but it just seems like things are not going to be working the same moving forward, and not in like, you know, just this area or this area, but in terms of kind of just like everything at the same time. Okay, so not going into this lunar cycle, but also this upcoming year with expectations, attachments to outcomes, needing to control things, or like I was just talking about, know the hows in advance to how things are going to go or come together. I think that's the best way that we can like set ourselves up for some type of personal perception of success, or at least to help ourselves stay more grounded as we move through the energy. Now, I think it's important, and I also think one of our best strategies here is to prepare ourselves, you know, to kind of like fortify ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, even like materially, to, you know, the greatest extent of our ability at this time, okay, to face the unknown and be able to adapt or to navigate these suddenly changing and perhaps very unfamiliar circumstances without totally losing our mind, totally losing our grasp on reality, like panicking and stuff like that. Because of course that is probably going to be an experience and a learning curve that a lot of people go through as we do move through this period of time. But if we're paying attention to the greater patterns unfolding energetically, which we are here on this channel, and we know that we're just heading for a time generally of moving into the great unknown, you know what I mean? And nothing is likely to be fully in our control. The thing that we do have control over is ourselves, okay? It's what we're doing with our time. It's what we're doing with our energy. It's what we're doing with our mind. It's the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. It's what we're doing with our resources that we do have available to us. And I feel like, you know, there's a major element of learning to trust the process of things as they unfold here. Even like I was saying before, even if we don't exactly know what it is or know how things are going to go, or, you know, if we are going to have any security or support underneath us whenever all of this lands or comes together, you know, we may not be able to control the circumstances. We may not be able to predict exactly what's going to happen, but we can control ourselves. Like I said, I recommend, you know, getting tough physically, mentally, emotionally, just realizing that that is in our best interest at this point in time. Getting in shape physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to the best of our ability, you know, like I said before, materially as well, even though we have no necessarily real sense of what is going to be, you know, the best thing to have done in that regard once we move through this next upcoming period of time. You know, the next 10 years or so, this first 10 years of this Pluto Aquarius transit, I feel like it's going to be some type of like great renewal or something like that. There's going to be major changes across the board, I feel like, essentially, as we realize a lot of the like our versions of like truth and reality that we had been historically abiding by and perceiving as our collective human narrative here on Earth. I feel like there's going to be things happening over this next 20 years that just like blow the lid right off that, and we have to literally like really be able to reconsider. You know, it's a paradigm shift, right? The actual foundation of our reality. And as I get more through this report, that right there is going to come back around. We're going to circle right back around to that, because we are in the midst of a 20-year unfolding period of time right now that is reestablishing just that. Saturn, ruling the Capricorn cycle, is in a square with Jupiter very tightly, almost exactly, for our Capricorn cycle. And this conjunction began at 0 degrees of the sign of Aquarius, which is where Pluto is and has been, and it's all about, I mean, Jupiter and Saturn coming together, that's a manifestation energy at its core. You know, it can manifest a bajillion different ways, but at its core, it's about some bigger vision being expanded and grounded into the physical material world. It's about laying foundations to expand some concept or vision or idea about where we're going to go next, depending on where the alignment took place. It builds it builds a dimension of reality over that 20 years. And with it having happened at 0 degrees of Aquarius, you guys know what that means. That is this radical change, right? So we're in a period of time right now that is building a level of reality, basically, kind of, that is very much about creating radical change. Pluto also has officially began a 20-year transit through the sign of Aquarius, which will also bring, you know, this 2-decade period of some quite radical change. We're, of course, transitioning on the greater scale into the age of Aquarius right now, which is why we are having a lot of these transits that indicate these radical changes in alignment with this 0 degree Aquarius energy coming through right now. You see how that works together. There's method behind the madness, right? It's all like part of the process of that greater transition, so we can see it playing out. And that's what we do on this channel, is we look at how the aspects and transits that are happening on the smaller scale actually are like building the transition into the age of Aquarius that we talk about, and that has been being spoken about in the astrological community literally since the beginning of the 1900s. And there's people that say that the age of Aquarius, true age of Aquarius, is still like a couple hundred years out. So there's varying speculation about when the exact shift is occurring. However, for me, I personally am perceiving it, and everyone else in the world may disagree if they choose. But to me, Pluto and Aquarius at this point in time, Pluto roots things. Pluto, it's all about what is happening like deep within the subconscious mind and stuff. I don't know, just the synchronistic way that a lot of varying transits are coming together right now. I feel like this is a predominant, although probably only one of the first of many Pluto Aquarius transits that makes a profound impact on ushering in and rooting the frequencies of the planet that represent that new age, because it takes Pluto 250 years to go around the zodiac. So this is actually 1776. That was around 1778, I believe it was, actually between 1776 and 1778. That is when Pluto entered Aquarius the last time. That was probably when we started getting like the first inklings of the Aquarian archetypes, like first starting to be picked up by people. And now 250 years later, with this Pluto Aquarius transit, I think that we are getting like even more so immersed in these frequencies. The next 250 years from now, the next Pluto and Aquarius transit, I think that by that point in time, it will be, and that may be when, you know, the other astrologers, Vedic astrologers and stuff, are talking about the true entrance into the age of Aquarius. That one is probably going to be like the point of no return. Like we don't even kind of like recognize the energy from the past Piscean age anymore. Like we are the age of Aquarius now. Like I think that is probably how that next 250 year cycle will come in. It will probably be like the cement that holds the Aquarian energy in place for the remainder of the 2000 year cycle that the age of Aquarius plays out. But anyways, that's me getting caught up on all types of strings that are not the string that I'm supposed to be pulling on, the thread, I mean to say, that I'm supposed to be pulling on right now. So I'm gonna reel it back just a little bit. But anyways, that the reason why I went off there is because Saturn and Jupiter started that 20-year cycle in 2020 at 0 degrees of Aquarius as well. And I was talking about how as we move forward through this cycle into the next Aquarian cycle, things are going to be changing. But as of right now, I think that we are learning how to work with this energy, and the lessons honestly could be a little bit brutal. They could be a little bit harsh. They could be just like wildly disorienting on some level. But the sign of Aquarius, you guys. I talk about this now. We'll continue to talk about this. It's a co-ruled sign. We have Saturn, the ancient ruler of the sign, and we have Uranus, the modern ruler of the sign. Saturn is control, it's limitation, it's tradition, it's structure, it's discipline. Aquarius is essentially like the polar opposite energy of that. It is novelty, it is change, it is the unexpected, it is, you know, the lightning striking the tower, it is the galactic fixer. You know, it is said that Uranus makes the changes for us that we haven't been able to make for ourselves. Uranus is associated with the future. Saturn is associated with the past. To me, as a result of that, I think that Aquarius is a sign that has to do with breaking out of boxes, like overcoming previous limitations that essentially kind of like held us back in order to align with the destiny or align with a higher purpose. I always feel like on the higher octave end of the Aquarian Uranian energy, there is a force there that is facilitating our ability to kind of like activate a destiny. And it's about awakening, and it is about putting things right, and it is about making the changes for us we have been able to make for ourselves. And a lot of times it's these external circumstances that go on that force us to like overcome what held us back in the past. Aquarius has a lot to do with overcoming limitations, but it also has a lot to do with the ways that like that out of the box energy taken to extreme, it can also be detrimental. It's also a very stubborn energy. When we're dealing with the Aquarian energy, it is very important to integrate the combination of discipline and potential, discipline and authenticity, discipline and understanding, because any of these, you know, more sort of like eccentric, out of the box, like unique, I guess we could say, Aquarian traits without the balance of the discipline that the Saturnian energy also provides, it can just get totally out of control. You know what I mean? Like it can just be like so wild that it's not actually able to execute on the purpose or be the vision of what it's meant to be, because it's got no like grounding. You know what I mean? It's this wild fixed air. It's like electricity sort of, but we need some type of grounding or some type of channel for it to run through, or it's not doing its job. Like that actually just popped into my head, and it's a really good kind of metaphor for describing the nature of the Aquarian energy. Like it is just the energy in the air, but if you want to use that energy effectively, right, you've got to figure out like a channel or a means or a conductor or some type of mechanism for channeling and controlling and like you know, streamlining that energy, or it's just going to just be there and not be utilized properly. So and a lot of times I feel like with the baby Aquarius energy, like that's kind of how it is. Like we want to be different and we have to be unique, and we're not going to follow the rules, and we're going to be really stubborn about it, but there's the lack of discipline that is required to actually make that like meaningful or effective or successful or like turn into what it's meant to be. So one of the main challenges I think that is going to be, and maybe something that we're dealing with as we move through this Capricorn cycle, bridging into the Aquarius cycle as well, is figuring out how to control ourselves in a way that channels our energy for the most effective purpose. You know, this isn't like, we don't want to be the rebel without a cause, you know what I mean? Which can be the case when we have this overflow of Aquarian energy that is unchanneled, that is like that is not being conducted along a specific purpose, okay? So the more that we can do to prime ourselves for the fulfillment of that purpose, maybe whatever it may be, whenever it may come, like the more ready we are to face the day, you know, I just think that we're going to be better off. And I think that that is a part of the lesson that life is teaching us right now. So I recommend getting tough, you guys, physically, mentally, spiritually, training ourselves, preparing ourselves, because if the point in time comes when things are changing in such a way, nobody really knows what's going on, decisions and choices have to be made, you're going to feel a heck of a lot more confident, strong, prepared, and able to make a personal choice, to stand by your personal truth, to go in your own direction without feeling the need to conform or comply or betray yourself or your truth on some level out of a sense of internal inadequacy or vulnerability or weakness or lack of trust in yourself, in a higher power, in the process. You know what I mean? And we don't want to be there. Like, this is no longer about an energy that is supporting us turning our back on ourselves in order to follow the group to achieve some type of like common consensus or get some type of outcome because of our compliance. This is really about us finding our power, standing in it, finding our purpose, moving towards it, being more authentic with ourselves, with the relationships in our lives, being honest with ourselves about what we want, being honest with ourselves about what we need. A lot of this past year and a half as well has been about showing us where we've been lying to ourselves and how that also can no longer continue to go on. So really, this Capricorn cycle may be pushing you to find yourself on an even deeper level somehow. Could be based on personal history, could be based on confronting some type of enemy within that therefore also translates into maybe the enemies around us. Major fundamental life-changing personal transformations, though, I do feel are underway, and this is bridging us into some new era of our lives that is going to be different from anything that we've experienced thus far. Doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've been around, okay? Now I finally want to get into talking about the aspects and where I'm really drawing all of this from. As I said, the new moon in Capricorn itself, it is lining up at 9 degrees and 43 minutes of the sign of Capricorn. Oh, also, by the way, December 30th, 2024, 5:27 Eastern Time, 22:27 Universal Time, 9 degrees, 43 minutes of the sign of Capricorn. So that's the basic data for the chart. But we've got the new moon itself at that 9 degrees of Capricorn. Like, it's really not making any aspects. Like, if you're just looking at the chart on surface face value, you're like, oh, this is a simple one. There's not too much going on. This should be a walk in the park, this here Capricorn lunar cycle. However, look just a little bit deeper, and as I said, like, all of this emerges about really kind of like the gravity of where things are at, both the past and what is to come in the future, kind of at their fulcrum point, you know what I mean? And that is because, well, one of the main transits is this ongoing Jupiter-Saturn square that we've been talking about. This is a significant transit in any astrology at any point in time when we have a square going on between Jupiter and Saturn. This is a big, it's just a more critical energetic point because it is a harsh aspect. It is a quarter way point in a 20-year cycle. There's only 4 of these. We have the conjunction when it starts, the first quarter square, which is where we're at now. The opposition will be another like 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years after that, there'll be the third quarter square, and then the aspect, the transit will conclude, and we will start a new Jupiter-Saturn cycle, some vision coming into reality over the course of the next 20 years, building something over a 20-year period of time based on wherever the next alignment takes place. But in terms of where we're at now, and of course, like I said, Saturn being the ruler of this Capricorn cycle, whatever's going on with the ruler of a cycle is important in the context of what that energy is about, with Jupiter there. And this is the second of a 3-part square, actually, between this past August of 2024. Here's, some of the dates coming into play now. August of 2024 and actually June of 2025, which hasn't happened yet, and where we're at now, December of 2024. All of these 3 points in time are connected in terms of this one transit, this square between Jupiter and Saturn, which of course is the first critical point in this grander 20-year cycle. So we've really got 3 important points, important hits of energy. One this past August, one now in alignment with this Capricorn cycle, which gives the Capricorn cycle which means really actually that the Capricorn cycle is very much focused and centered around what this Saturn Jupiter square is bringing to us. And this particular, so that means also, you know, again, whatever, this point we're at now is also connected to what's going to be going on in June. So you may find some, I don't know, some just relationship between those two periods of time in your life somehow. But all three, regardless, are related to us being at sort of this critical breakthrough or turning point or point of challenge that needs to be overcome in relation to whatever it is that we need or that we've been trying to build or bring into fruition since that December 2020 alignment of these two planets at 0 degrees of the sign of Aquarius, building some radically different new foundation in our lives, a fundamental change in how things grow when we have an alignment like that happening at 0 degrees of the sign of Aquarius. So we know, and then when we've got the square, right? Saturn limits, Saturn controls, Saturn is rules, regulations, authority. Jupiter is expansion. Jupiter is growth. Jupiter is also truth. Jupiter is also faith. So when we have the square going on, it can test our faith in our vision, okay? It can create blockages to growth. That's why I was saying, and this is a lunar cycle Capricorn represented through the Saturnian energy. So on therefore, you know, kind of a higher level or layer or more surface value of what this lunar cycle is about, it's going to have to do with being at some type of an impasse that needs to be overcome somehow. So we have that, okay? But what's extra revealing to me actually about the way that these alignments are setting themselves up for our new moon in Capricorn, with the understanding that the primary motive, I guess we could say energetically here, is the square, and this critical quarter way point through the 20-year cycle is actually what's going on with Mars and Pluto and the nodes of the moon as we move through this period of time as well. Now, the nodes of the moon that is another one of these transits that I've been kind of explaining but not explaining as we've moved through this report so far. I've talked about a 1.5-year transit that is concluding, and also an 18-year transit is concluding. Those are both in relation to the nodes of the moon. The nodes of the moon represent destiny and karma. North node, destiny, growth, evolution, sort of where we're being sort of compulsively pulled, even maybe against our will, but it's like collectively what we need to learn or experience next, okay? It's the collective destiny, the north node, and then the south node, the oppositional point to that. Therefore, this is karma, karmic endings, karmic release. This is the past, this is loss, this is letting go, this is moving on. It's the exact opposite. We can't go through the next phase of growth if we're still holding on to what we've already learned, essentially, basically. So when we're dealing with a nodal transit, the nodes being activated, there's an element of release with the south node, and there's an karmic release and karma as well, and also an element of destiny and growth that is associated with the north node. Now, as this Capricorn cycle is culminating, the north and the south nodes of the moon, which take a 1.5 years to transit any signal polarity, signal axis, because remember, we've got one in one sign, we've always got one in the oppositional sign. So the nodes are really always operating in polarities and along a specific axis of energy. And they have been in Aries and Libra since July of 2023. July of 2023, we all in some way, as the north node entered the sign of Aries, began some personal hero's journey that was meant to redefine our sense of self somehow, to re-empower us on some level, to call us like forth to be a leader in our own lives again somehow, to like have us set forth on some just type of new journey or new path or in some new direction. Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, the sign of the self, the sign of the leader, the pioneer, the warrior, okay? With the north node there has been a destined learning path and associated with those Mars Aries qualities. The South Node in the sign of Libra, this is, if Aries is a sign of the self, Libra is a sign of other people. This is about relationships. This is about the group, okay? It's also an air sign. It's about like common consensus. It's also about balance. It's also about peace. It also has a lot to do with acceptance and rejection, and also what is fair. With the South Node in the sign of Libra, to the same extent that the North Node in Aries has been like calling us to rediscover self, it's like that has been happening, but through a process actually of what ties we're severing, who we're letting go of, what like group think we're detaching ourselves from, kind of like maybe the boats that we're willing to rock a little bit, like the piece that we're not necessarily trying to keep anymore. So, you know, over the past year and a half, you may have noticed that as you have tried to step more into your own personal identity or go through some personal upgrade or up leveling somehow, you may have had to shed some like old friends or old relationships. This is also like value systems and preferences changing pretty dramatically. Like anything that tied us to our old identity that was in any way out of alignment with a more authentic sense of self was going to become kind of obvious and just feel like it didn't resonate with us anymore. And there's also this compulsion or drive to stand up for ourselves, to defend ourselves, and to go in this new direction. It's just the karmic lesson associated with that particular nodal transit. And that is ending throughout the course of this Capricorn cycle. We are going to have a nodal energy shift by the time that we get into the new moon in Aquarius. Like I mentioned at the beginning, the nodes will have changed signs, will have backed into Pisces and Virgo, and we will have a new year and a half long lesson plan. So therefore, a lot of what we've been dealing with and working through karmically over the past year and a half will find its end throughout the course of this Capricorn cycle as well, making it again another one of these more significant lunar cycles throughout the year. Now, on this even greater, grander scale, June of 2006, you guys, this was the month when we had what is happening now, happening the most previous time to now, when the nodes in Aries and Libra were transitioning into Pisces and Virgo. So in June of 2006, that was the last time energetically, in terms of the positioning of the nodes of the moon, destiny and karma, that we were at the same point where we're at now. So a new cycle, 18 years long, began in June of 2006, that is just ending now throughout the course of this Capricorn cycle. So there may have been lessons, okay, that went on starting then, that brought you through this whole period of time that you're finally coming to the end of now, as we prepare to head into the Aquarian cycle that is again going to introduce us to a new 18-year life path, essentially, on a karmic and destined level, because we're talking about both karma, karmic lessons, and karmic release, and also what is just destined to happen in alignment with a higher purpose in our soul's growth and evolution on, you know, all of our individual levels, but also in terms of the macrocosm unfolding cosmic story right now as well. So though, like all of that, those things, those reasons are additional reasons why this Capricorn cycle to me is extra significant, especially in the context of what has been, what is now, and also what is to come. Now, I've just said a lot, but I haven't even said it all, okay? What is like super crazy to me actually about the way that this Capricorn new moon energy is coming together has to do, I mentioned it, but then I went off onto my big spiel about the nodes of the moon, and now I'm going to bring back into this the current interplay between Mars and Pluto in an opposition, you guys, at 1 degree, 2 degrees of Aquarius and Leo. So we've got the square going on between Jupiter and Saturn that is defining the cycle. We've got the nodal transits going on that are letting us know, like, yeah, it is, you know, end of an era, things are shifting. Like we are being released from some karmic pattern, preparing to go in some new direction, and the transition is happening over the course of, you know, this Capricornian lunar cycle. But here's the thing. Mars and Pluto, they're in almost an exact opposition at those same early degrees of the sign of Aquarius, which is the birth origin point of the Saturn-Jupiter square that is defining this particular lunar cycle, and also, of course, where Pluto is currently located right now. But Mars and Pluto, and that already on its own is a very powerful dynamic, energetic dynamic that is bringing forth confrontation, challenge, like head-to-head battles over stuff. Like, this is that head-to-head face-off power struggle challenge, either happening within ourselves or in terms of, you know, whatever we're navigating out there, that we are required to like do or to persevere through or to overcome on some level in order to get to this next level. It's like we're at, like, if life was a video game, it's sort of like we are at this final battle before we unlock this new level. That's how I'm perceiving this Mars-Pluto opposition that we've got going on. But the thing is, okay, and this is what, when I was looking at this chart of this energy, I was just like, oh my God, it's all so crazy. Like, just the way that it's all written. The nodes of the moon, I just got done rambling on and on about how they're so significant right now in terms of the cycles that are ending and beginning in relation to the destiny and karmic paths, destined paths that they represent. Both of those energies are exactly feeding into the Mars-Pluto opposition. Okay, and that is, to me, like the most clear of the writing on the wall that there could possibly be. Like, it's literally like universe has like neon flashing lights about what we're doing here, what's going on in this lunar cycle, what we're supposed to be doing, and like the direction that all of this is taking us, even though at the exact same time we literally still have really like no sense of what any of that looks like. And it's because right now, as I said, the nodes are preparing to end their transit of Aries and Libra. Nodes are unique little astrological energetic bodies out there. They move backwards through the zodiac. So actually the end of the Aries Libra transit of the nodes of the moon comes when they hit 0 degrees of Aries and Libra, and then the beginning of the Pisces Virgo nodal transit that we're moving into right now begins when they hit 30 degrees or 29 degrees, the last degree of that sign, and then they move backwards through them. So while we have right now for this new moon the nodes of the moon at 1 degree, because remember this is happening over this next couple weeks, 1 degree of Aries where the north node is and Libra where the south node is, we have Mars and Pluto, you guys, in that opposition, and Leo in Aquarius. What does that mean? It means that Mars, and who is retrograde right now, and that is also significant, but Mars is also ruling the position of the north node. The north node is destiny. This is the path ahead. This is the growth. This is the evolution. This is the hero's journey. This is the knight in shining armor. This is being the new leader in our story. This is the redefining the self. Okay, like this is the growth associated with that entire north node transit journey we've been going through the next year and a half. Mars is ruling that energy. So Mars and the north node in a trine together, like, this is hyper activating whatever this north node lesson path has brought us over the past year and a half in the context of the Mars archetype and us rising into that somehow. They're in a trine together. Trines are facilitating aspects. This is universe assisting things to happen. Now, granted, Mars is retrograde, so we're still making corrections. There are corrections currently in the process being made to the trajectory of future events and how we're going to act and do things going forward. There are redos being made, but this Martian energy, okay, in the opposition to Pluto, directly driving the future course. Now, on the polar flip side of that, with Mars and Pluto in the opposition, Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius for our new moon, the south node is exactly 1 degree of Libra. So we have an exact trine going on between the south node of the moon. Explain to you what that is already. That is karmic endings. That is release. That is what we're letting go of. That is what we're walking away from. That is what, if we continue to act that way, if we continue to think that way, if we continue to participate in that, if we continue to value that, if we continue to accept that and hold on to that and try to stay attached to that, it's just, we're never going to make it. It's going to be utter hell, with the trine to Pluto ruling the underworld, ruling death, rebirth, purge, transformation. There is no clear indication, you guys. The only way forward is this head-to-head confrontation with our own demons, with our own personal fears of inadequacy, or what we need to overcome within ourselves to prove that we are strong and that we are capable and that we have it within us to rise to this purpose and go in this new direction, that we don't need to necessarily like bend the knee or just disregard our own like personal will or motivation for some type of group consensus, or to keep some type of like previously existing peace in some type of way. This is the death of the old ways, you guys. Pluto and Mars head to head, 2 out of 3. This Pluto-Mars dynamic opposition, which I've already talked about, it is a 2 out of 3 part transit as well. I talked about how we have a 3-part Jupiter-Saturn square going on. That is because of Jupiter's retrograde process. We also have a 3-part Mars-Pluto opposition in Aquarius and Leo because of Mars's retrograde. This pending, it's actually going to happen in just a couple of days, the exact opposition, the 2nd out of 3 exact oppositions between Mars and Pluto. And for our new moon, they are only 1 degree out of exact opposition with each other in exact and near exact trines, facilitations to the nodes of the moon, who are ending both of those concurrent cycles, 18-year, 1.5 years, okay? And we're dealing with, remember, the foundational energy of the new moon is the square between Saturn and Jupiter, the impasse to growth, the what needs to be overcome in order to expand. And you guys, this chart is telling us very clearly what needs to be overcome in order to expand. It is the dynamic of the opposition between Pluto and Mars, some personal confrontation that we've got to actually conquer and let go of in order to be released to go in this new direction. Pluto in an exact trine to the South Node, like, those are the demons from the past, okay, that have prohibited us from seeing ourselves clearly and being able to unlock or align with a higher destiny and really truly move in that direction. The Saturn Jupiter square, like, that is the boundary that we're coming up against, you know what I mean? Like, that is the challenge or the restriction or the weight that we've been carrying, or whatever is like limiting or holding back our growth or progress in alignment with this very new change or very new like era of our lives, or radically new direction, or however it's manifesting for you. This is where things are coming to a head that we have got to let something go. You know what I mean? Pluto in a trine to the South Node, that is the purging of the past. That is also, though, the dissolving of karmic connections and karmic ties that maybe have kept us in these perpetuating patterns and loops for ever, or even generationally perhaps, because we're talking about Pluto in Aquarius now. This is a generational energy. And then also simultaneously with Mars in the trine to the North Node and Mars retrograde, it's like the way that we're acting, the way that we're behaving, the way that we're using our energy is going to be radically altered or changed as a result of whatever we're purging, releasing, letting go of, death of the old ways, death of the old us, death of the old eras, death of the old, you know, it's relationships, it's values, it's preferences, it's ties to the material world. Okay, so these powerful confrontations, power struggles and challenges, one driving destiny, you know, what's next, evolution and growth, the other driving endings, loss, karmic release, this great purge that is underway as well, and corrections with Mars retrograde needing to be made now to adjust the future course of things that are going to be happening going forward into the future. The impact of these times is going to be quite profound, I think, in terms of changing the world and the paradigm around us. We also have Venus and Uranus in a square together in Aquarius and Taurus, also a mutual reception for the new moon as well. That is another energy that is indicating these major shifts, perhaps in material world, financial situations, comfort zones, partnerships, alliances, agreements, things to do with relationships of all types and capacities, the material world around us, and where we, where what we desire, also what we value, but our sense of security in that material world, our sense of comfort perhaps could be shaken a bit as we move through this period of time as well. And we also have a Mercury Chiron trine and fire signs that I want to mention briefly also. Inner child healing, you guys. And I think there's also maybe going to be a level of wisdom gained through past experiences that alters the way that we're perceiving ourselves. And again, it could stem from some type of like inner child or inner child healing, or just like finally shifting our mind in such a way that allows us to release ourselves maybe from some previous states of victimhood that had been, for whatever reason, imprinted on our subconscious mind, and maybe we had associated with, but now we're realizing doesn't define us to the same extent. That type of thing could also be quite relevant and quite present as we move through this lunar cycle as well. You know, but with Mars retrograde trying the North Node, all this Aquarius energy incoming, even though, you know, we really know what needs to be done, perhaps, we just still may not have a clear sense of what things are going to look like once we get to the other side of this. But the Sabian symbol of the position where the new moon is happening today, 10 degrees of the sign of Capricorn, when we read the symbolism, the Sabian symbols associated with the astrological degrees, we always round up a degree because we read the waves of energy that are incoming, not the waves that are like moving out and dissipating. So we're going to be looking at 10 degrees of Capricorn for a new moon occurring at 9:43 Capricorn. But that Sabian symbol is an albatross feeding from the hand of a sailor, which to me is a positive omen. Do your work, stay true to your heart, find and cultivate strength within, and also find and cultivate the strength of your vision and your purpose and your truth and your spiritual connection and spiritual faith. Focus every day on becoming a better version of you, being an example, being an inspiration to others. But one thing that we really need to keep in mind, and this is also going to be a learning curve as we move through this energy, especially after coming out of a 20-year Pluto Capricorn generation, do not force things. Don't lecture, you know, talk down to people. Don't try to control. Don't put yourself on some, you know, pedestal that you have come to some point of awakening or knowledge and try to impart that on others through, you know, that type of strategy. It's just not going to work. In this new energy, people have to be allowed to find it for themselves. You know, they have to be able to make the choice for themselves, and we have to give the other people the opportunity to do that, and also to not to do that. We're all really on our own kind of like cosmic alarm clock right now. No matter how much you preach to people, no matter how much you lecture, no matter how much you even provide breadcrumbs or information or like try to make people see, if their alarm clock hasn't gone off yet, they're just not there. And it's not helping, and it's literally just spinning your wheels and a waste of your own energy to try to, even if it's the most well-intentioned, to try to make people see what you have personally discovered for yourself at this point in time. Again, like, this is the Great Awakening. The best way to impart that wisdom, you know, if you really love people and if you really care, is just literally to, like, you know, do the saying that we've all been saying for all of these years, to be the change that you want to see in the world, literally to live through, you know, instruct through your own example, okay? Inspire people to make personal changes for themselves through the personal changes that you are making for yourself. Inspire people to be more, you know, independent and to feel less of a need to go along with the crowd by your willingness to stand alone or to stand out or to not go along with the crowd. But again, like, we don't want to be brutal about it. Like, we don't want to be forceful. We don't want to come at this with the baby Aquarius energy. And a lot of people are going to be. A lot of people people are just going to be digging heels in and refusing to comply and demanding to like be able to break all the rules and again just be like the rebel without a cause, which is fine. That's its own learning curve, you know what I mean? But it's going to cycle and circle back around ultimately to the need to practice the self-discipline, this self-restraint, to do our work, to do our training, to do our own practice, and ultimately we will discover that teaching through example, leading through example, inspiring people through our example, that I think is the secret sauce here. I think that is the magic wand that universe is providing. I think that that's our best strategy for really getting things done from this point and moving forward into the undefinable and indiscernible future. And you know, along those same lines, training, preparation, cultivating our relationship with universe, with God, with a higher power, learning how to speak to the universe, learning how to listen and respond when the universe speaks to us, getting in alignment with divine service or divine purpose on some level, maybe in whatever way we're feeling called. I think that that is actually more and more so going to bring a sense of actually like magic back into our lives, back into our experience, even maybe like on a more day-to-day type of level. And not only that, if we are moving like that through life as we start interacting with these new energies going forward, I also think that the side effect of that will be our presence and example alone having that magical impact on the other people in our lives and other people we encounter. And again, I think that that is how we get the job done in this energy, is through doing it ourselves, other people seeing it, not being told that they have to. See, that is one thing, and I can tell you as an Aquarius myself and someone with a lot of Aquarian energy, when you're dealing with strong Aquarian energy, telling someone that they have to do something, especially when you don't provide like a thorough rationalization behind that, that is always going to get you a bad result. Like if you want to know how to fail with an Aquarius, you should force them to do something with no explanation behind it that doesn't make sense to them. Like that is how you get a bad reaction. How you get a good reaction is through doing something that inspires them to reach for something more within themselves and that stimulates internal desire for growth and change. And in terms of anything, you know, any type of fundamental change that we need to make, we need to decide from within that we want to do it because of some intrinsic motivation. But even more so, you know, when we're dealing with this incoming Aquarian energy, the more that we try to force things, the more that they're not going to work, or they're going to get the like oppositional effect. And we can see that playing out as well by the opposition currently between Pluto and Mars, these two powerful forces coming to a head. Okay, so the age of Aquarius, even the season of Aquarius, the generation of Aquarius, all this Aquarius energy coming in right now, I do think, you know, we talk a lot about the endings that are underway, but this is also kind of like the beginning of a more magical era that humanity is going to begin to move through if we can sort of tune our frequencies in the right ways to, you know, be able to interface with that dimension of the energy as it comes online. Okay, so the greatest impact we can have on the benefit of others in this energy is literally making these changes for ourselves and showing other people how to do it. It's the age of the lantern bearer, you guys. Again, throwing it back to like this Chiron energy that has been so prominent lately as well, and also ending the nodal transit of the North Node through Aries. Like we lead by example here. We cannot impart wisdom on anybody, but we can be a catalyst for someone else's awakening through our change being kind of contagious. Okay, so anyways, that's what I'm gonna say. That's what I think about this Capricorn cycle. It's a big one. It's significant. Not a lot of aspects going on with the new moon itself, but everything else is really super telling. I actually want to end just by kind of giving you guys a rundown of all the Sabian symbols that we have present. I'm not going to do too much analysis of them, but you know, some of them might be meaningful to you. And I think when we put them all together, they are also kind of just like backing up or validating a lot of the astrology underway as well. As I said, 10 degrees of Capricorn, that is the position of the new moon. An albatross feeding from the hand of a sailor, just traditionally a good omen for things. The position of the earth, always in an opposition to the sun, and when we have a new moon, the sun and the moon. At 10 degrees of Cancer, a large diamond in the first stages of the cutting process. Okay, so also kind of in alignment with what I'm saying about the energy right now. 19 Sag, where Mercury is. Pelicans, menaced by the behavior and refuse of men, seek safer areas for bringing up their young. Venus, 27 Aquarius, an ancient pottery bowl filled with violets. Mars, 3 degrees of Leo, a woman having her hair bobbed. 14 Gemini, where Jupiter is right now, bridging physical space and social distinction. 2 men communicate telepathically. Saturn at 15 Pisces, an officer drilling his men in a simulated attack. This one could hold special relevance as well because, again, Saturn is the ruler of this lunar cycle. So make a special note on that one. We could see manifestations of things along those lines happen throughout this cycle. We have Uranus at 24 Taurus, an Indian warrior riding fiercely, human scalps hanging from his belt. We have Neptune, 28 Pisces, a fertile garden under the full moon reveals an abundance of full-grown vegetables. We have the nodes, or Pluto, at 2 degrees of Aquarius right now, an unexpected thunderstorm. The North Node at 2 Aries, a comedian entertaining the group. The South Node at 2 Libra, the light of the 6th race transmuted to the 7th, and Chiron at 19 Aries. The magic carpet of Oriental imagery. So that's that, you guys. Lots of very interesting symbolism coming through there, especially when we consider the greater ramifications of where we're at energetically right now, outside of the simple lunar cycle, which this represents. Of course, this is a new moon cycle. From now until the new moon in Aquarius, we're going to be working through this energy, and that's that, you guys. So I'm going to wrap this baby up, get us a synchronicity card. God, Spirit, Universe, what is one final piece of advice for us? What should we know? What should we keep in mind? What should we tell ourselves? What should we affirm as we go through this lunar cycle? What did I miss? What wisdom do you have to impart on us for our final thoughts? And it's taking a minute to get a card, you guys, so must be a specific one. There it is. Stop, don't argue. So, the Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Exodus 14:14. Don't fight or argue. Rest in the assurance God is working for you on this matter. Relax, let go, and know a divine solution takes place. Harmony will return. Behave now as it is already before you. And it just makes me think of this confrontational energy that we have going on between Mars and Pluto. That is the fight. And also the square between Jupiter and Saturn. Like, that is the fight to overcome. So there could be some combat going on. There could be some confrontations. There could be some struggles. There could be some power struggles. There could be some battles. There could be some fights underway. But this is literally telling us, like, this is the time to surrender to the changes, surrender to the burden, surrender to the higher power, though. This doesn't necessarily mean, like, give up the fight. I don't think that's what this is about. I think this is about understanding that, you know, God has weapons we know not of, you know, all of, like, that whole concept right there. Things could be working themselves out on a higher level in ways that we can't necessarily conceive of right now. Like I was saying, we may not know the hows of things. We may not know the whys. We may not know the details or the intricacies or the connections or just the means and methods in which things are going to unfold or somehow come together. And maybe we just need to, like, not fight the situations that are underway. This is also the endings, you guys. Pluto in a trine in the South Node. If you try to hold on to the past right now, you are going to find yourself in the underworld. Like, that's just what we've got going on here. That is not the answer. The answer is letting go, making corrections, and preparing to be like rocket launched forward in some unanticipated new direction. That's where we're at, you guys. I'm going to stop talking now. Don't fight it. And there's that. So thank you for being here. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, you guys, share it with your friends if you think they would also be interested in narrating the shift of the ages with us. Leave me comments. I am so grateful for your presence on my channel, you guys. I really appreciate you being here, your thoughts, your comments, what you guys have to say. If you are having experiences that line up with what I'm talking about in these videos, please let me know in my comment section below. That's very valuable information to me. I sure do appreciate that. And if you want to know what's on this whiteboard, I also have a Facebook group where I post images of these boards linked in my description box below as well. So that's where you'll find that. And come back with me on Wednesday, you guys. We are going to have a New Year's video. I'm going to be taking, this is going to be another video sort of like today, except for it's not going to be a new moon video. It's going to be a New Year's video. I'm going to be taking a look at the chart for January 1st, 2025, and using that as a blueprint for what this calendar year might be looking like for us. So you don't want to miss that one. I will be back with that. You should be here too, and I will see you guys next time. Have a beautiful last couple of days of 2024, beautiful new moon in Capricorn, and until then, guys, bye.